In business, sometimes it seems like results can take a back seat to output. Not to say that output isn't valuable, but the right output is really where you need to be paying attention. Over the last few years, we've seen all these technological innovations, AI and different things, and everyone's talking about how much more efficient they can get. I think it's interesting that we're talking about efficiencies, but not how we could achieve our goals and do things more effectively. First off, you need to have goals and you break down those KPIs into manageable pieces so you understand what you're going to do. But then you got to be able to dial it back and understand, like, so when are we going to measure for these goals? How should these goals be prioritized? How do we know that we're doing the right kind of thing? How do we know when we're not doing the right kind of thing? And when I talk to other agencies, or we talk to some customers where they might have their own goal and we ask them how well they're doing on track to their goal, and there's a dramatic pause. So it's one of the big things that I have a problem with as a business owner. I've owned my agency for 18 years now, and our mantra is to help people grow smarter. And one of the things you have to do is have information to modify and double down on doing things the right way. That information is usually context on your progress towards achieving the goal or goals. At Impulse, we have a process we call the GPS, and it's the goals, the plans, and the strategies that help you get to where you need to go. When we think about business in general, if we look at things from a money standpoint, folks are typically pretty motivated by money. Business owners and entrepreneurs are usually focused on understanding the details. You'll hear a lot about velocity from the LinkedIn bros and making sure you get things super fast and quick. But what I find very interesting is I see a trend of folks that are able to get to the result they want by collecting information along the way. When we ask how often people are looking at their goals or checking on their metrics, usually it's connected to a monthly or a quarterly basis, or they do a review on, a semi-annual basis. And that's really scary when you think about it from a business standpoint. I grew up in a boat in the Caribbean. What you don't do, especially on a sailboat, is set your course and your bearing on where you're going to go when you're navigating. You know that you want to get to the destination. You know which direction it generally is, because you've done the prep work and the map of how all of it comes together. What's interesting to me is folks tend to say, we're going there, and then they check halfway to see whether or not they're on the right track. And I want you to think about the last time that you went somewhere you didn't know, if you had a map, and how often you check to see whether or not you were on track on where you needed to go. Right? When I think businesses, when I talk to business owners and employees, the status quo is for things to be connected to a month end. You'll hear month end promotions, or you'll hear salespeople that are very motivated to make sure they had a good month. And unfortunately, what happens is you see a tail end of the effort happening at the end of that month. That's where the end of month, end of quarter sales numbers start to really be realized. The problem is, especially for a service company, we need that month end push to be the push that happens every day. We need to make sure there is a gradual influx of business, because there are humans that gradually have to get business done so they can take on more work. We're a business after all. If you talk about the SaaS side, there's going to be a human element to it, but you might not be as time constrained. Overall, that's a big part of it. And I find that companies only start looking at their metrics at the end of that period. A salesperson might look and be like, oh, I'm down on my sales numbers for this month, but they're paying attention to the duration of the month and how far along. And why do salespeople pay attention to metrics in a different way than most other employees do? Usually because they are incentivized by the outputs they create. So they're going to keep track of those numbers. Even though it's a month end number, they're very much keeping track of that number so that it is directly connected to their paycheck. But let's shift that mindset and let's shift that over to other areas of the organization. Revenue, cash flow, payroll, the amount of new leads that are coming in, the amount of traffic from organic, the amount of engagement you're getting on social. Whatever your key metrics are that roll up to the results that you desire in your business, how often are you checking them? If the answer is monthly, you have 12 opportunities for improvement. If your number is monthly that you're checking your numbers, you have 12 opportunities for improvement. If it's quarterly, you have 4. The one thing that I've learned over the last few years is that the market is changing. And with how connected everyone is on social media, the market can change in weeks. If we're talking about how to do something a certain way, and it can change within a weekly time period, what happens to your business if you're only tracking it quarterly? You need to start thinking about how you can slice down and connect to being more strategic in general, but you're not going to be able to do that if you are placing your numbers and that information you should be getting in regards to your feedback loop. So when you think of those monthly review meetings or monthly board meetings, you're going to be having those review meetings talking about the progress, but you really need to be thinking about what needs to change, or if you're doing it better, what has changed because of the numbers, rather than waiting till the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year to make your pivot. What I advocate for is running on a rolling 30 days, or you could do a rolling 14 days. But if you have a rolling 30-day number or a rolling 60-day number, it doesn't limit you to the 12 checks per year if you're doing rolling 30 days. At any given point on demand, the first thing that you open up in the morning can be your rolling 30-day number. If you know what your monthly needs to be, the monthly goal, right? A 12-month goal overall, and your that is going to connect to your rolling 30-day number in regards to where you should be. If you want to know how well you did the last 30 days versus between 30 and 60 days ago, you start to get an idea of whether or not you're trending in the right direction. Now, if you have staff members and partners, like we're an agency to a lot of companies and help them grow, if you're checking things on that rolling 30, you don't have to wonder or wait until a Friday or until the end of month in order to understand where you are in regards to the goals. It gives you a handy barometer to understand how much more effective or where your goals are going to end up. If you're continually on that rolling 30-day and you're seeing the green over and over again, you're going to end up with a really good month. If you have some dips in that result, you're also going to be able to know the day that dip happens, that something happened 30 days ago that was really great, and we haven't replaced it today or yesterday in regards to revenue or in regards to results. It allows for you to have that feedback loop the moment it happened, even though it's a snapshot of something that's easy to understand in how it relates to the rest of the business goals. So if you put out a really great social post and a really great campaign in regards to new content 30 days ago, and the ones that you've been working on over the last 7 days aren't performing as well as the one that happened 30 days, the second that number dips, you have the context. You can look at the last week and the week you had 30 days ago and immediately compare the two different sides of that strategy or the results and immediately know whether or not it makes sense and what kind of pivots you might need to change the outcome. The magic happens when we realize that those activities, that deep thinking, can happen every single day that you look at that rolling 30-day number, because you've got the barometer to understand whether something's right or wrong, on track or not quite there. And when you start to think about that number, there are going to be folks that are going to say, you know what, that seems like super daunting. I'm going to spend every single day not hitting my number. I challenge you, yes, it is a mindset shift. But at the end of the day, is that any better or any worse when you start to consider the fact that I know salespeople and folks that start at zero at the first day of the month, and it's an artificial first day of the month. Payroll in a lot of businesses doesn't happen only on the 1st and the 15th. It happens on a biweekly payroll schedule. Cash flow of the business isn't always going to be on the 1st of the month. When we start thinking about having these artificial dates and these checks, you've got to be careful that the strategy doesn't go out the window. And what I mean by that is this. Imagine that you're put together a campaign. It takes you 30 days because you are making sure you've got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. You look at the data from 30 days ago when you started and you're like, this could be a good campaign. And then it takes you 30 days to build, and then you get ready to deploy it, and you get to the end of the month and you look at your statistics and something's changed. It could be outside, it could be inside of your business, but ultimately there's a pivot that's needed. You're up the creek without a paddle. You've got a brand new campaign that might need some pivots. And because you didn't have your finger on the pulse, now you're 30 days behind to be able to pivot what you just put together. That's a really dangerous situation. Now, let's use a more specific example. At Impulse, we do social media calendars, content calendars. We're going to create content. We're going to help you with posting on social. Well, a lot of cases, it's interviewing subject matter experts, and it's bringing the whole campaign together. Those are done on 30-day cycles because we plan them out and get them scheduled. If we weren't thinking about things from a rolling 30-day point of view in regards to always having our finger on the metrics and paying attention to the metrics that matter, it's very easy for you to be making sure that you have a social media calendar put in place before the 1st of the month so that you can have the entire month scheduled, but then not have done your reporting and review of this last month. What happens is the creation happens before the analysis happens. By focusing on this 30-day rolling for your metrics, it allows you to be inherently focused and have your finger on the heartbeat of your marketing or whatever metrics you're working on. It allows you to have the immediate perspective of where to look if things start to fall off, or how you have to push on the gas in order to make things, turn around. And it allows for you to know how you can pivot your marketing if you're paying attention to those overall metrics. It's the difference between what things are down this week. I think we need to do some extra social posts similar to what we did 30 days ago so that we hit our numbers for the month, rather than, oh shit, we didn't get our numbers because the social posts didn't end up working well enough, right? We're in this world of execution is the form of success, when we should be focusing on performance is the measure of success. And if performance is the measure of success, then how do we look at improving things? It's by having our finger on the pulse of our marketing, sales, revenue, the metrics that matter. And so I challenge you, if you are looking at things on a month end and you're looking at strategy in arrears, to start looking at a rolling 30-day metrics of all the metrics that you pay attention to monthly, but switch it so that it's the rolling 30. I think that you will find a variety of things that will be more effective in your business simply by understanding and having the context of where you were. You'll see ebbs and flows in your business. you'll be able to understand and pivot on things the day of rather than the next month. And you'll be able to start actually executing strategically because you have the context necessary to be able to pivot the strategy in the first place. So let me know your thoughts. And if you need some help with converting from a monthly in arrears type reporting to a rolling 30 in order to see the numbers, let's talk about it. And if you don't have the numbers in regards to what you need to do in your organization, maybe you don't have the authority, this is a power up for you. You need to ask deeper questions so you can make sure that the goals that you're putting together are going to roll up to the metrics that matter for your boss, their boss's boss, or the company overall. You may not have permission to have the details, but if you ask the questions and you lead with some expectations in regards to the numbers that you think you can achieve or the areas of the business you want to pay more attention to, it's only going to help how you execute for your company and how you're viewed in your company. And it's going to get you to the point where you can start justifying your existence every single day, not just at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. Let me know how it goes.